Okay, good evening. I apologize, we're running 10 minutes late. We have a long board works agenda. So it is 6:10 on August 17th, 2020. It's time to call the city council meeting to order. Ms. Rhodes, roll call, please.
Yes, sir. Mr. Austin?
Here.
Mr. Blankenship?
Here.
Mr. Hukin?
Present.
Ms. Jones? Here. Ms. McGinnis? Here. Mr. Rainierson?
Here.
Mr. Taylor?
Here.
Sir, you have a quorum.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Brian Reese, please some prayer and pledge.
Will do. Let's pray. Our Father, we come to you tonight. We thank you for the blessing of another day of life. I pray that you would help this agenda as we look over it, as the council considers it, give wisdom. As we welcome a new firefighter, police officer, thank you for sending them our way. And I pray that you bless and protect them in their time of service and their families as they make the sacrifice of serving, protecting, and helping and aiding here in our city. Be with the budget considerations tonight and all that goes into that. I pray that our council and they are good stewards of the taxpayer funds, and I just pray your blessings upon this meeting tonight. Thank you for the privilege to be here. It's in your name we pray. Amen. Let's stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, again, thank everyone for coming tonight. I always like the fact that we can swear in new firefighters and police officers. And I appreciate everything that public safety people do for us. So I think I'll go ahead and start with firefighter Logan Coffey. Raise your right hand. I, Logan Coffey,
I, Logan Coffey,
have been appointed, promoted to the position of firefighter
promoted to the position of firefighter
in the City of Franklin Fire Department.
in the City of Franklin Fire Department.
I swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America,
I swear I will support the Constitution of the United States of America,
the Constitution of the State of Indiana,
the Constitution of the State of Indiana,
and the rules and regulations of the Franklin Fire Department.
and the rules and regulations of the Franklin Fire Department.
I swear that I will obey all the lawful orders
I swear I will obey all the lawful orders
of my superior officers
of my superior officers
and faithfully discharge the duties
and faithfully discharge the duties
of said position to the best of my ability.
of said position to the best of my ability.
Well, thank you, sir. Can't tell what smiling changed. Okay, now I'll call Corey Hamilton. And I want you to know, Corey, you got to wear just like that. It's just not- So you'll have a nice signature on the wall. Why don't you read it right?
Congratulations.
I, Corey Hamilton,
I, Corey Hamilton,
a member of
Thank you.
the Franklin, Indiana Police Department,
a member of the Franklin, Indiana Police Department,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America,
Yeah. Thank you. Have a good day.
Constitution of the State of Indiana,
that I will faithfully discharge all my official duties.
and I will faithfully discharge all my official duties.
Congratulations, sir. Thank you. We'll get you the- All right. Is there any more announcements, presentations, or public comment? I know Lydia and Annette Barr and Rita LaGrange, 3 trustees here in our county. And what I think is good news. So.
Yes. So I'm Lydia Wells, Franklin Township trustee.
I'm Rita LaGrange, Union Township trustee.
And I'm Annette Barr, Union Township trustee. And we are merging our 3 townships. We're making this just out to the public just to get support. And we are looking at merging the 3 townships straight across the county effective January 1st of 2023. The consolidation will eliminate duplicated expenses because we'll go from 3 trustees to 1, 9 board members to 3 for the new township. All the Franklin schools will be in 1 township. Franklin Township has purchased the building at 20 Circle Drive, so it's going to have a building where people can actually come to the clients to get assistance and fill out all the necessary paperwork. It will also eliminate as to the confusion as where a person lives, because we have a lot of people that call on a daily basis. They have a Franklin address, but they're not in Franklin Township. They're in Needham or they're in Union, and it's very difficult for them to understand that. So that's what we're doing. We're working on getting our public hearing set, and that will probably be held mid-March of 2021. That's what we got.
I think there's been over the years, I've heard several councilmen talk about how you merge and save money. I think you guys did a great job. I just want to say it again, I appreciate all 3 of you what you're doing. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Mayor, move to approve consent agenda as written. Second.
We have a motion to approve the consent agenda. We have a second by Mr. Taylor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, is there any more announcements or presentations on those comments? That's fine.
So the chamber is doing a few things for, Indiana Member Credit Union is, we're celebrating their grand opening by facilitating ribbon cutting on Wednesday. We've got a couple others in the works as well, and one also that's exciting is Culver's in October. So it's good to see that businesses are opening back up.
All right, thank you.
So move to read all this by title only. Second.
Second again by Mr. Taylor. So this is a public hearing tonight, and we can act on this one. Common Council ordinance number 20. Make a motion. There was a motion and a second to read by
Title only, vote on it.
Yes. Yes.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. That's what happens when I get a question.
That's what happens when we've been in meetings since 4.
And all day. Okay, now we'll start over. Public hearing for Common Council ordinance number 20-12, authorizing issuance of bonds for the purpose of providing funds to refinance the city's general obligation bonds of 2010 and incidental expenses in connection therewith, and on account of the issuance of bonds, recall of Barnes and Gilbert and Jeff Peters and Peters Municipality. We can take action on this one tonight. Just recap what we got here, sir.
Sure, just to be brief, again, the city has an opportunity to refinance its 2010 general obligation bonds. by issuing new bonds. The interest rate environment is such that there's a savings between the environment when the original bonds were issued and the current environment. This ordinance authorizes those bonds in the amount of $2.1 million with the same final maturity date as the existing bonds of January 1st, 2030. The proceeds of the refunding bonds have to be appropriated, and that's why there's a public hearing this evening on that appropriation. I'd be happy to answer any questions, and I know Jeff Peters is here too, and comment on anything financial.
Any questions? Okay, we need a motion for the public hearing. Is there anybody in the public have any questions or any comments? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing. Ready for discussion with the council or a motion?
I'll move for approval of common council ordinance number 20-12.
Second.
We have a second by Ms. Lisa Jones. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Hearing none, there you go. Thank you.
Right, thank you.
Thanks, John.
Appreciate your help.
Okay, item number 2 is also open for a public hearing. It's Common Council Ordinance number 20-09. Ordinance approving the resolution of the City of Franklin Plan Commission and annexing certain property contiguous to the Franklin corporate limits to be known as GDI Holding Annexation. Senior Planner Joanna Myers.
Good evening. Mike Sheik with GDI Holdings is here also, should there be any question. This request is for annexing 10 acres that is located at the southeast corner of 89 Forest Road, which is the site that GDI has a site development plan that's been reviewed for the construction of around 900,000 square foot warehouse facility. This property actually goes from that southeast corner to Amity Ditch. The reason that they are needing that property is for 2 reasons. One, once the sanitary sewer gets extended and down Amity, this is how they're going to actually connect to the sanitary sewer. And then also their drainage would go through and outlet into Amity Ditch. So this is ready for public hearing, and it was before Planning Commission, which they forwarded a favorable recommendation by the agency review.
So at this time, I will open it up to for public hearing. It was actually introduced last meeting, August 3rd. We have a public hearing tonight, but we can't act on it until,
Correct. Final action will be on September 21st, is that correct? Correct.
can we act on it the 8th since we're going to have a full city council meeting?
I don't know, because there is a time frame from between the public hearing to the next one.
I believe it's 30 days, so I think that is too close.
Okay.
So I'm not sure, and it's been targeted to be on the September 21st, which I don't believe, yeah. That doesn't impact your timing at all.
The 8th to the 20th. I've already
It's
got,
a difference of 14 days essentially.
I don't think it affects us.
Okay, so again, we're open for public hearing. Anybody have any questions, comments? Public? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing and set for actions September 21st. Okay, we'll go on to the next item.
Not yet. So in addition to this, on the request form, it was also the approval of the resolution 2020-14 for the fiscal plan. The fiscal plan is provided within this packet. As outlined previously, there is somewhat of a difference on how we had done our fiscal plans before because of the sanitary sewer extension. That is all listed in here. And you can actually take action on the resolution for the fiscal plan this evening.
Just for a reminder for our new members, before we can annex land, we have to be able to just demonstrate through this plan that we can appropriately serve the area that's in question. So that's what the fiscal plan is, and we can annex the land through the fiscal plan.
So we need a public hearing on that.
determination that we have the resources to be able to adequately provide services to the area, fire, water protection, that's how water and sewer protection. So you can act on this complaint rather without that, and the person who is acting on the decision.
So, we have a motion on the fiscal plan.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Ms. McGinnis. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, hearing none, we'll go on to item number 3. Common Council ordinance number 20-10, ordinance approving resolution 20-17 of the City of Franklin Planning Commission, rezoning certain property to industrial light to be known as GPI Holding rezoning senior planner Joanna Myers.
This is a companion piece to the annexation ordinance. The request is to rezone this property from agriculture to industrial light, which is consistent with the remaining portion of the property. It is up for public hearing this evening, and the Planning Commission forwarded it to you with a favorable recommendation.
And Joanna, this is in our zoning district anyway, annexation.
It is in our buffer zone, which is, it's currently zoned agriculture. And as Jared, whoever's running the system, just reminded me, this one does have a condition for that rezoning, and it is that the subject property and lot 1 of I-65 South Logistics Center shall be combined into a single lot. This will require primary plat, secondary plat, construction and approval from the city of Franklin, and the rezoning shall not take effect until the secondary plat is recorded.
What Joanna's telling you there in her lingo is technically we're rezoning that we have not annexed it yet. But when we are rezoning this, right, it's still within our buffer zone, and that's contingent upon them applying the requirements of the city of Franklin, essentially, rather than the county requirements in anticipation of housing. Is that what you said?
That is what I
Right on.
I went through a very complicated
Right on.
outline of that in the introduction after the public hearing.
Okay, so I will open this one up for public hearing. If we have any questions, audience, or comments? Hearing none, I think Joanna has another request, so we will close.
We would like to request that you continue this for official action to coincide with the annexation to the September 21st meeting.
So we need a motion to table to the 21st meeting
Yes.
for action.
Motion to table for the 21st meeting.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Mr. Austin. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joanna. Hearing none, we'll go to Common Council ordinance number 4-11, ordinance repealing ordinance number 97-36, creating an insurance trust fund. City Attorney Lynn Gray, this one was introduced on August the 3rd, and we could take action tonight.
Yes, sir. You'll recall briefly introduced it last meeting. This was in response to the request of your court treasurer. Years ago, and I'm sorry, Jane, I can't remember the date, but prior to 1996, prior clerk treasurer introduced this ordinance and asked that the city council establish a trust fund for the purposes of paying insurance claims. It was about that time that the city went to its self-insurance program that it currently has today. And I think the concern by the clerk treasurer was that money be set aside without knowing exactly how much the insurance payment would cost, how we would administer it. So the council did create this fund with the restriction that the money can only be used to pay insurance. Fast forward to 2020, that money sits there and it is restricted because it's designated in that trust fund. And your clerk treasurer, we are adequately covered with other funds and other accounts. We don't have concern or issue the ability to pay insurance. And so clerk treasurer asked that I introduce this to repeal that prior fund and then allow this money to leave Jane and now go back into the general fund. Is that correct? So you can use it as you see fit, which is appropriate for other things.
So, I don't think this requires a public hearing, but I'm going to ask to open it up for a public hearing anyway. If anybody has any questions in the audience, now's the time. Hearing none, I will close the public hearing. So any questions from the council?
I'll move for approval of common council ordinance number 20-11.
Second.
There's a motion and a second by Mr. Ryerson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, hearing none, we'll go to new business.
Mayor, move to read new business by title only.
Second by Mr. Taylor to read all on new business by title only. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we'll go to new business. Discussion and challenge current ordinance regarding application vetting for food trucks. Jason Tapp, Luke's Pizzeria, and Tapp. Jason.
All right. Appreciate the opportunity. I kind of approach everything from two sides here, just as a Franklin resident as well as a business owner. I own Rick's Pizzeria and Catherine here in downtown. And the topic, I guess, is just food trucks, and I think it's just a very popular thing that's become maybe more prevalent here in the Midwest. So as a resident, I think it's awesome. So I think there's a lot of pros and cons, but I think I just wanted to approach more inquisitive about what's surrounding and just the structure around it. And I think it's because of the sensitive times that we're all dealing with as a business owner. It just struck me as something that I felt like it was needed to go through just proper channels to better educate myself and just to know the facts. I did reach out to several of you, and I've learned that there is a structure, a permitting process for food trucks, and so maybe I can learn maybe just a little bit more about that or just further discussion. And I understand that the food trucks, if I'm a food truck owner, you can be pretty nomadic wherever you'd like to go and set up shop, wherever the hot spots are. I think Franklin is most definitely something that is a target for folks that are that kind of roam and go through downtown areas. So it's a real beneficial place for them to set up shop. And I think I just approached all of this with, as far as being a resident, we still continue to see restaurants coming in, shops and boutiques, and it's amazing. So since I've been here almost 6 years, which seems crazy, but it's really flourished. And so with that, it's definitely it's an attractive destination for food trucks. Well, I don't oppose them as a resident. I think I just question as a business owner during these times, as I think the moment would come on a Friday night where I, heavily staff, and it was a Friday night, just the whole preparation for it, and then to know that a lobster food truck, which sounds great, lobster out of a truck, and they got a lot of business, and it really hurt my Friday night business. And I don't want to come off as saying, well, there's competition, but the food trucks being nomadic in nature, I just was very curious as to see what kind of vetting process the city does, and then I guess just the structure in place to a couple things. I guess the downtown area is one of a kind, very unique. You can park and walk and hit about every type of shop possible. So to build it and develop that, I'm always thankful to be a part of it. But to have a non-local food truck set up a block away from me, eat up a third or more of my business, and then unhitch and pull away and leave town, I just I felt it was necessary to just take a look at it and see what the rules and regulations were around them. And I've reached out and kind of been educating myself, but this I felt like was the proper channel to go through. And I think that aside from that, there's a lot of capital investments to set up a brick and mortar place, and to continue it and to just keep it going. And through all of it, I think what was my turning point with it was just the challenge. It was during COVID, and as everyone kind of weathers the storms of the guidelines, the restrictions, and knowing them and complying with them, seeing decreased sales in the form of dine-in, the reluctance of customers to ever go out, and it has definitely hit the pocketbook. But to really kind of think that a food truck, you're not as susceptible to all of these restrictions as people just walk up. And I think well, maybe I should have a food truck, but maybe that's not my option right now. So during these times, and as we all attempt to support local and love local, I mean, it's definitely a philosophy that has made Franklin extremely unique, and we live by it. But it did seem something that was having non-local food trucks set up, and now very more, I think, a prevalent thing. If you are an established business in town and you do not have a commercial kitchen and you don't have the offerings of food, well, I feel like it's just as easy to get the proper permits, or you host it and then they take on the requirements to get the permitting. And you can round out your offerings by throwing a food truck on your property. I know zoning has something to do with it, and
So Jason, with bringing up the zoning there,
sure.
I didn't know all the rules myself, so and I'm sure that people on the council probably don't know what we have, the process, but, so I reached out to Joanna and Lynn, and so they can tell you exactly how it works, and then if it needs to change it or something, that's something the council just have to think about, so.
And if I might give, because I think the way this is on the agenda might be in this, no, we don't have a food truck ordinance. And with regard to permitting, permitting is handled through the health department. Quite frankly, there was a time, Joanna, what, maybe 10 years ago, when she and I thought that this may be an issue to come up, and so we started looking at the various ordinances that are in existence, the various other entities that govern these things, and permitting in food trucks, quite frankly, we don't have the personnel to do that. That's why that's done through the health department, to look into the food. We don't go in and inspect Mr. Tapp's kitchen either. I mean, that's done by them. The other things that are dealt with are in our zoning ordinances, just as a matter of they're applicable to all businesses. In other words, we don't permit any business to be in our right of way and operate your business without coming in and asking for it. And that you see that at Board of Works meetings. However, businesses or any entity can park within a parking space. And so as long as they're not on our right of way, as long as they're permitted by the health department, so long as they're in a square parking space, and so long as they are very temporary. Joanna's at 60 days or 30 days, I can't remember.
The temporary use?
Temporary use.
It's 2 years.
Is it 2 years? Is that how long it is? As long as they comply with all those restrictions, we don't prohibit them, we don't authorize them, we don't do any of those kinds of things. The health department does that. Quite frankly, if you look at food truck ordinances and other entities, when we made a conclusion at that point in time that what we did with our existing ordinances was the same thing that those other entities did, and there's no reason to later on another set of ordinances that people would have to comply with. That's kind of the background. So to answer Mr. Tapp's correct question, we don't have a food truck ordinance. We have ordinances that everybody complies with, as long as they're permitted, as long as they're in the right zone district, and so on and so forth. And the health department doesn't permit. And quite frankly, Jason, we don't have the personnel, if you will, to do those types of things that the health department has inspected.
And what these do we know? Is the health department, like just like the lobster truck did, are they being inspected once they set up shop?
Yeah. It's run. You may
Do
recall.
they have to call the health department and say, hey, we're going to set up?
That's
and
correct.
Then, okay.
And they have to do it. And then there's certain restrictions, and Joanne can elaborate on it. You may recall that our friendly neighbors to the west of us, Barker's Mill, had a similar issue going on in the flea markets and food trucks and things, and the health department was what stepped up and addressed those issues, along with some other zoning issues that they have. But we don't have a food truck ordinance. We have ordinances that apply to all businesses.
What's the distinction between those entities and what we see at our festivals?
None. And quite frankly, to be frank with you, when we had this conversation and discussions, and this was done really at the administrative level about, years ago, they started talking about food trucks are going to be popular. There was this disconnect of how would it be that the city was authorizing our own festival things, but yet we wouldn't authorize other entrepreneurs to do their things.
Well, I'll just, when I saw it on the agenda last meeting, it didn't happen, I thought, I kind of get where you're coming from. And to me, the people that make the investment in real estate improvements, leasehold improvements and everything else, I don't know, I just like to think that we've got some way to protect these folks. You certainly don't want to create a disadvantage. I don't know, but that concerns me. But yet, why would, this one, I woke up last night thinking about this, why is it that we can't have concessions open in the Little League parks, and yet there's food trucks and ice cone trucks up there? And I don't know if that's just an internal decision by the city or by Little League or what, but just, I don't know, just.
That may be COVID related, Bob, I can't speak to
I don't
that.
know.
I mean, this is a unique
But just,
time.
you speak of how they get it when COVID does it. I am sympathetic to what you're talking about, and I'm not aware too much about what I'm like probably most folks. I don't know really if we have anything. What we do have, are there communities that do have restrictions?
Very rarely,
How
because
do they enforce it? I know it might be an enforcement
it's
problem.
an enforcement problem, it's a balancing, as Mr. Tapp has indicated, free enterprise, competition versus.
Yeah.
So there, I mean, there's a lot of, so most communities, to answer your question, have not gotten into it because of the duplication of efforts in the sense of the health department, if it is a public health and safety issue, is better able to take care of it, and the zoning issues are what we deal with. In other words, say a food truck in the middle of your residence may be a violation, but otherwise it's permitted by the zoning ordinance permitted. So Joanna, you can elaborate on it, because it's been years since we really thought about this.
Yeah, as Lynn had stated, we did, when food trucks were really taking off, we did look at what other communities were doing specific to food trucks and the permitting on private property, on public ways, all of that. After we did all that research, basically what we found out is a number of our different ordinances actually took care of regulating the operation and use of food trucks. So one area, as Linda mentioned, was zoning ordinance. So the way that we apply it is if the property is zoned that allows a restaurant, then a food truck can operate from that property. If it's zoned industrial, residential, then it's not a permitted use in that zoning district. So that's why it wouldn't be permitted there. If it's on a public way, we have our parking requirements that, as Lynn stated, has to be within a parking stall, legally parked regarding that. With regard to how they operate, we have the keeping public ways free and open for pedestrians. So for example, East and West Court Street, there is not the ability, except during festivals, to park a food truck in one of those spaces, because then they would have to operate with serving into either another parking space or a handicap space, which is not permitted. So that's why you don't see them on East and West Court Street. So with those, and the health department regulating the actual safety and operations of the food truck, all of those things actually regulate where and how they operate. In the zoning ordinance, we also have the temporary use and structures section, which states no more than 2 years. So that section helps with food trucks, the vendors of produce, mums, the steak people that come into town, and as long as it's on private property that's zoned appropriately and is not obstructing any of the public ways of parking, etc., then it's permitted, obviously with the approval of the property owner. So in essence, we have ordinances that already address the operation of food trucks.
Joanna, so someone, I've seen trucks, say up at Tractor Supply as an example, I think Legends runs a truck out there on occasion, once a week, or whatever the case may be.
Correct.
Is that considered private property?
Yes,
It is, okay.
but it's permitted zoning.
Okay, I understand, but they've got permission to be there.
Generally, if they don't, they call us. Let us know.
Right.
But yes, and we do, I mean, with Franklin being the community it is, we are able to keep a pretty good eye on where they're setting up, how long they've been there. We have had instances where they were located in locations that they weren't permitted, and we've reached out to them and they no longer locate there.
Right.
So, you know, it's something that it doesn't constitute, as what we've experienced to date, the need for a separate ordinance to duplicate what we already have in the books.
And we also, and I just wanted to add one other thing, when we looked into this, an absolute prohibition and or ban is probably not a direction that you can go under and pass constitutional muster from a legal standpoint. I would have grave concerns that that would be the approach to be done without jeopardizing our zoning ordinances.
Joanna, did you say it had to be zoned that,
It has to be zoned
like you can serve food?
consistent with, yes, so if a restaurant's permitted in the zoning district, a food truck is permitted there.
So the crab leg, crab frog leg, whatever.
Lobster truck.
Lobster truck, okay, was that Tule New Toys?
Yes,
Is that zoned for food?
yes.
Okay. That's the distinction.
So
What
if
you're saying is really.
you're going to put a hot dog stand at your residence, you may not do that.
I'm thinking of Mr. Salty.
Oh, is that it?
Well, Mr. Tapp, you've been a part of this transition, and you've seen downtown, you've been transforming downtown for a long time. And we appreciate that. A part of me says free enterprise, you being a businessman, entrepreneur, you can respect that. There's a part of me that maybe we ought to look at it, maybe we ought to form a committee, maybe we ought to look into delve into the details. And I know I'll probably get some grounds by saying it, but maybe we're large enough that maybe we ought to look at something and try to, like I say, micromanagement, micromanage it, but maybe, I don't know. I don't know if we physically can do anything like that.
I don't know of any ordinance that has more restrictions than what we already have. That's what I'm saying, it's just not all put into one ordinance. And we certainly would not get into permitting the health department, we would be way overstepping.
No, I understand that, and it's not going to be our intention.
All that considered, you have a unique product and a unique atmosphere that a food truck can't give. And even on nights where festivals bring all the folks down here, you folks still pull in a pretty good, I would think you pull in a pretty good share of business during festivals, just because of the reputation and the quality of the food, beverages that you deliver. I'm kind of all over the place with the fact, I think about the amphitheater, are we going to be set up for food trucks there as well?
Yes.
So the whole idea is it draws more people downtown. And sometimes the food trucks out there, the excess covers the excess people. Right now with COVID, it's a different situation because you're restricted, but it seems like the food trucks aren't. And it's kind of a competitive disadvantage right now. I don't think that's permanent, but I'm thinking time, things will even out or get back to where it was. I don't know that they made that big of a dent in what you folks did before.
Food trucks?
During the festivals and things,
No.
pre-COVID.
Yeah, no, I mean, that was kind of like my final thought was, but, and I'm thankfully like right in the heart of festival country. I mean, it's amazing. My front door leads right into festival, and it's always been like the ace in the hole where it's like you're a part of it, and it's awesome. But then when festivals like became, something of the past and something that happened to rejuvenate the future. But then the entrance of food trucks right outside there was the point of, all the restrictions, and then then you had a line full of 40, 50 people. I'm not gonna hard press on social distancing, but it was just, that's all I heard about. What I really cared about was, where is my Friday rush? Well, they're in line to get lobster. But, so I never really, I just felt like I benefited from the festivals, and I think I'd have a different stance if I wasn't right there in the front step of it. But again, you got Brazini's food truck right a stone's throw out my door. But I was right there in the heart, and it is a free enterprise, and so I thoroughly respect and I get it. And I just, I think it was just a matter of maybe these sensitive times where, it's not the same. And it's not the same for customers or owners. But it seems like it's free reign, sort of, in a very, I don't want to say loophole, but it was very much, if you're a food truck owner, you have your pickings. They go cherry pick anything that's, a good spot. And maybe it's the limited barriers to entry, economically, and from the government, the municipalities standpoint. So,
Jason, I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
Have you reached out to the health department to make sure the food trucks that you see, I mean, I don't think any of us have, but to make sure they're doing the right things. That would be my biggest concern, is make sure it's healthy.
Yeah, I talked to Bob Smith. He had a pretty abbreviated comment regarding it, and it was just they go through the permitting, it's just the paperwork, and then there is a cursory inspection, personal face-to-face inspection, and it's a checklist, and then they're good, but not much of a follow-up. The permit, I believe, is good for 2 years, and I did ask him if there's a follow-up, because I'm always on the lookout, there's Bob coming in for inspections and follow-ups, and I'm not sure if that's in place
Well,
there.
I will tell you, and I'm certainly not trying to make it hard on anyone, but I will personally reach out and tell Bob, say, I know where the festivals are here, that he comes and checks the food trucks here himself with what he set up. I will ask him to make sure that he does some spot inspections and make sure that they're compliant with that check.
I appreciate it. He's thorough.
I always go eat lunch where Bob is, and I know they don't do
You got it.
So that's a compliment.
He is very
I host the Kiwanis group,
That's right.
and,
You
but
must be
yeah,
doing something right.
you got it, yeah, but Bob's in the house, it's something's going right, but, no,
Bob can also do the code inspection as well.
correct.
Enforcement, because if they're the enforcement body, they ought to look at that.
He's my source, yeah. So,
Just again, as mayor, I want to just tell you, we appreciate you being here, and I appreciate you coming to have this discussion also, so I understand where you're coming from.
excellent.
I certainly.
May I ask a question?
Absolutely.
My name is Mike Tapp, for the record, I'm Jason's dad, I'm also his controller, believe that or not.
And ex-city councilman in Greenwood.
Ex-city.
RDC.
Yeah, RDC.
Yeah, and Lynn and I used to date, but anyway. Strike that.
Don't hold that against him, he's a nice guy.
Here's my burning question. Do these food trucks, are they required to pay the 1% Johnson County food and beverage tax?
I can't answer that question for you, Mike, I really don't know.
That's a good question.
I believe they don't,
Yeah.
but I don't know for sure. That would be a concern I would have if I was sitting up there as a city councilman.
Is that- That's a
It's
county
cash
tax.
business. I hear it dig on tomorrow, and I think I'm not finding fault with the food truck business at all, but that is something that I don't think is addressed.
That's a good point. I'll take it.
Yeah, the county does that, don't they? Or who wants to charge that?
Yeah, I mean, if you're in Greenwood, get it paid in Greenwood too.
Right.
Thank you.
You look at the Twist in Cecilia, that used to be a food truck, and the huge success story they had when going from a truck to opening up their own business. And I wonder, but I can only eat it about once or twice a week, right? So,
Thank you.
yeah, so, I love the fact that we've got a a vendor, new business in town, and came to town, and used to be a food truck, and celebrate their business, because that's a success story.
Absolutely.
And, you know, I applaud that. So anyway, that's my little, I don't know, I mean, that, you know, food truck to open up their own business, that's huge. I mean, you know, that's the American dream, and they make really great sandwiches.
If it's all right with the council, just so we can kind of wrap it up, I'll tell you what, I will commit to talk with Bob Smith, and I'm on behalf of the city council with their concerns, if that's all right with you guys.
Yeah.
And then also, I'll have a conversation with Commissioner Baird about the tax, on what the county does with that tax.
So that would just make sure they're paying, and that at least we're getting something back, you know, in return for posting, and that at least they're kicking their fair share. I mean, it's, you know, I see them as a legitimate business that's in town, it's competition to, you know, everybody in the restaurant business, but as long as they're paying their fair share, then they're paying the taxes.
I don't know, I struggle with the distance, on a personal note, the distance, how close they are to another business, but.
Well, I have no further comments.
Thank you.
Mayor, council, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Okay, the next 4 items on the list has to do with our budget. And tonight is introduction. However, every time we do introductions to the budget, we'll discuss it. Folks desire to do that. So I'll just start with item number 1, introduction of the 2021 budget. I will say that I've met one-on-one with all councilmen and went over the budget, gave them reasons of where we landed, what we're going to do with the money. Also, I met with Judge Lloyd with his budget from city court. So this is the main budget here. If we want to discuss it again tonight, we have a public hearing September the 8th and September the 21st, and then action would be October the 5th. So, no bigger.
I think, you know, the main thing that, I don't know that it's necessary to go through every line item, but just point out to the residents or anybody that has any questions, it is online. They have access to the same information that we have. And so it's all out there. If the public wants to see it, I mean, they're welcome to look at it, they're welcome to ask questions about it as well, as far as I know. And it's out there, so. I want to say I appreciate the mayor taking the time to go over this in some detail. And Judge, you called some of us, maybe all of us, and asked if we had any questions. I appreciate you doing that as well, so.
Call everybody.
Yeah.
I have about 3 or 4.
Okay. Any other comments?
I mean, at some point, Mayor, I think maybe what we want to do is highlight some of the things that, the changes that's going to be made.
We can do that on the 8th and 22nd.
And that's fine. I don't necessarily say it needs to be done tonight, but I think highlight some of the points that the changes that are being made to you folks.
Absolutely. I did bring one.
I know you did. I bet you did. I'm sure you're well prepared.
Should we read these in the record?
Yes, I will.
Okay.
So again, that was the introduction of the 2021 budget, forms 1s and the summary. The next item, which is item number 3 on the agenda, Common Council Budgetary Ordinance number 20-10, ordinance repealing and replacing Budgetary Ordinance number 19-12, fixing and authorizing the payment of certain salaries of appointed officers and employees for the year 2021 civil city. Again, if you have any, want to say anything, feel free. The next item, Common Council Budgetary Ordinance number 20-11, an ordinance repealing and replacing Budgetary Ordinance number 19-13, fixing and authorizing the payment of certain salaries of appointed officers and employees of the city of Franklin, Indiana for the year 2021 sewer utility. Next one, common council budgetary ordinance number 20-12, ordinance fixing the annual salaries and providing compensation for all elected officials in the city of Franklin, Indiana for the year 2021. So that is our 4 budgetary items that we will pass. We will have action on again October the 5th, and we will have public hearing September the 8th and 21st. September the 8th is Tuesday, it's Monday after Labor Day, so that's why we're going to do it Tuesday.
Is that at 6 p.m. as well?
Yes, it will be at 6 p.m. and we will also have a Board of Works meeting the same night because Clerk Treasurer and I talked today, and with the claims that we will pay, that way we don't have people waiting to be paid. So there'll be a Board of Works at 5, City Council at 6, in September the 8th. So I'm open for questions now, or we can go on to the next item, and we have 2 more meetings to talk about the budget if we wish. Hearing none, I'm going to move on. Okay, next item, Common Council Budgetary Ordinance number 20-13, additional appropriation for local road and bridge matching grant fund 2020 in the amount of $321,200.30. Clerk Treasurer James Rhodes. This is also for introduction tonight, and we will take action on September the 8th.
Correct. And this is another piece with our community crossings grant. It's approved that we can move money. Now I need next meeting to approve that we can spend. Yes.
Okay. Any questions for Jane tonight? Hearing none, we'll go to the next item. Common Council Resolution number 20-15, waiving non-compliance with tax abatement compliance requirements for the City of Franklin Redevelopment Commission Shell Building. Resolution 2017-10, Community Development Specialist Dana Mossman. We can take action on this tonight.
Yes, we can. In 2017, as you know, the Franklin Redevelopment Commission requested and was approved a 10-year tax abatement on the Shell Building located at 40 Linville Way. At the time that we did this, Crystal Linke talked to the county and asked them about, since we are not a tax-paying entity, how do we handle the compliance forms until this is sold? They told Krista at that time that we do not need to do any of the paperwork since we are not a tax-paying entity, there's no taxes involved, we don't need to do that. They were pretty adamant that no, we didn't need to worry about that, so we did not worry about that. In 2 months ago, June of 2020, the Redevelopment Commission began working with Cushman and Wakefield and have since hired them to market the building. So we reached back out to the county to find out, since we don't have the CF1s, how is this going to be, what year is this in? We want to make sure that we are correct so that when the building is sold to a private entity and they take over that abatement, because abatement will transfer to the new owner, what year would it be in? How would that be handled? In between that 2017 conversation and the conversation this year, there was a new clerk that was hired in to handle the abatements for the county. She looked into it and came back to us and said, actually, we do need to be doing these CF1s. We do need to be doing all of this paperwork. And unfortunately, she let us know that a week after the deadline was due to have them filed for this year. So therefore, it forces us to do a waiver of non-compliance request to you. We took this to the Economic Development Commission, and they did recommend approval for the waiver of non-compliance as well as the CF1, which would mean that the 2020 pay 2021 taxes will be the first year of the abatement, so that when this building is sold, hopefully this year, and it transfers over to a new owner, they will still have 9 years of the abatement because this will be the first year. Again, this was all through the county. That's the really condensed version of what happened. So I'm before you tonight to request a waiver of non-compliance and approval of the CF1 form.
And the EDC heard the explanation of what happened, and since it was a miscommunication between the county and us, we made the favorable recommendation to approve it. That we are.
Any questions?
I'd make a motion to approve 20-15.
You can always pass and change your mind next month, and then that's what happens.
That's what you can do.
Second.
Okay, second by Mr. Taylor. Okay, any more questions from the council? We do have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, thank you, James.
Thank you.
Okay, we don't have any other business unless somebody wants to bring something up that's not on the agenda. We'll go on to council comments, and I'll start again in alphabetical order. Mr. Austin, while you're signing your case.
I don't have anything, Mayor.
Okay. How about Ms. Blankenship?
No comments, Mayor.
Hey, Mr. Buchanan?
I'm fresh out of ideas.
Mr. Jones?
I just want to thank you for taking, what was it, 2.5 hours of your time to go over the budget with me. I probably was your longest appointment because I know I had a lot of questions, but it meant a lot to me that you took the time to go through it and answer all my questions, and I just want to say thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Mrs. McGinnis?
I have nothing tonight.
Mr. Ryerson?
I've got nothing tonight.
Mr. Taylor?
Nothing, sir.
How about Mrs. Rhodes?
No, sir.
Tara, do you have anything?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay, how about Mrs. Gray?
Yes, sir.
Okay, hearing none. Any motion?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Second by Mrs. McGinnis. All those in favor?
Aye.